Hello, Michael over here. We're going to start today by looking at some of the basic rhetorical strategies that you're going to use for the rhetorical analysis, and eventually you're going to be using these for the persuasive essay as well. But we're going to do the rhetorical analysis essay first so that you can kind of see how professionals use these devices, and then you'll be applying them to your own work with the persuasive essay. So the first thing that we want to look at, or that we're going to look at, is what we call a rhetorical triangle. And this is something that some of you may be familiar with, but the Greek philosopher and thinker Aristotle came up with this triangle, ethos, pathos, and logos, in order to describe the types of appeals that people make in speaking or writing. So the first one, ethos, is really dependent on the credibility of the speaker. So this always depends on who the speaker is. So you can always think of this as, anytime you see a commercial and it says, trust me, I'm a doctor, or something like that, or a celebrity endorsement. We're trusting that person primarily because of who they as an individual are. Pathos is slightly different. So pathos is an appeal based on emotion. So this type of argument, a pathos-based argument, is based on appealing to our emotions, or pulling on our heartstrings. So this is kind of what happens when we see those commercials for adopting animals, and it shows a really sad dog or a really sad cat, and we learn that we can help these animals for the price of a cup of coffee a day, right? And we feel emotionally compelled to do something. Logos is the last one, and of the triangle, the last corner of the triangle, and this is really an argument that's based on logic. It's really the persuasion is based on if X then Y, and really like kind of a logical conditional statement. So it's kind of the foundation that Aristotle came up with, and there is a fourth one that's not part of the triangle, and this is called Kairos. So the Greeks had two sort of words for time that are worth bringing up: Chronos and Kairos. So Chronos is just kind of time in general, whereas Kairos is the messages being delivered at the right time. So when we think of how this works in our daily lives, because even though Aristotle was writing a long time ago, these methods are still relevant, and you'll hear them again as you continue in academia, as you continue your school career. So you kind of think about how many of us have social media, right? Whether that's Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or Pinterest or whatever it is, and we engage in it, right? And so in these, we're often using this rhetorical triangle. Now, even if you don't have social media, if you go and occasionally look at Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, then it works still. You're sort of still part of that community, even if you're kind of lurking in the background, because you're a consumer of it. So I want you to think for a moment about the things that you consider before posting something to social media. You may consider who's going to see it, your audience. You may consider whether or not it's appropriate. You may also consider whether or not you want it on the internet forever. So just to kind of put this in perspective, right? We've got this little infographic here from mystudentvoices.com. They show us that the total number of active media accounts is 2.08 billion people worldwide. And there are something like 7.5 billion people in the world. So the active accounts are about 30%, about 1/3 of the total population. The total number of social accounts accessing via mobile, you can see here an active mobile social account. So we're constantly engaging in this. And something like Twitter allows us to examine tweets or examine rhetoric. So I'm going to show you this first tweet here, and this is a real tweet. And this person posted to Twitter a picture of herself with the commentary, "Cisco just offered me a job. Now I have to weigh the utility of a fatty paycheck against the daily commute to San Jose and hating the work. Okay, well, think about maybe what she failed to consider. It's very likely that she failed to consider who her overall audience was and didn't really think about the fact that her future employer, Cisco, might see this. Well, they did, and they did not go through with the job offer. So just by one tweet, failure to consider her audience, she was her job was rescinded. Here's another one. I find it ironic that Detroit is known as the Motor City, and yet no one here knows how to effing drive. And that's from Chrysler Autos. Again, this resulted in the same type of thing. Whoever posted this to Chrysler Autos Twitter did not think about who the audience was. Right. Here's the last one, and this is also a real one. Please close school tomorrow, please. Of course, tomorrow is spelled wrong, and this person responded, but then how would you learn how to spell tomorrow? Which seems simple enough, and yet this person who responded to the Nathan's tweet here was fired. It was posted by a teacher, and you can see that again, failure to consider audience and timing. So what we've got here, a couple quotes from Jeffrey C. Swift, who's writing about Twitter rhetoric. And again, kind of stay with me on this. This is kind of a good way to introduce us to rhetoric. So Swift calls Twitter and so on microblogging, and he says microblogging rhetoric is significantly different than traditional potential persuasion, so much so that potential rhetoric becomes the main focus. And again, we'll get into maybe potential rhetoric here in a second. Twitter is more about publicly accumulating the potential for future rhetoric efficacy than privately storing that energy away. And what he's talking about here is the more we tweet, the more potential energy or potential influence we have. And the idea there is that it's kind of, we'll see this in a moment, this sort of ethos or tweethos as he calls it. The second quote here, he says, Aristotle's logos, insofar as they focus on working to persuade an audience to consider an argument, which is read this, or an invitation, follow my tweets. And then, of course, the third and final one here, Twitter ethos, tweethos. Other Twitterers, however, can earn tweet cred based solely on their Twitter prowess, usually tied to a cornering of a niche market of interest. So, again, it doesn't necessarily really matter who the person is, so long as they've created this identity on Twitter and built up their ethos. So people follow them simply because they have posted a lot. Okay, so what I want to look at here are a couple different tweets, and we're going to kind of evaluate maybe what is being shown here. So here's one from the American Red Cross, and we've got a picture here, and then it says this weekend, Red Cross plans to install more than 15,000 smoke alarms as part of MLK Day activities. So we're going to ask ourselves, from ethos, pathos, logos, and let's include Kairos, which one or ones come up here? I'll give you a minute to think about it. And feel free to pause and then resume when you're ready. So hopefully you've thought about this, and it's not necessarily logos, and it's not necessarily a lot of pathos, but it is definitely ethos because it depends on who the Red Cross is. And I'd say there's also a wee bit of Kairos in here because it depends specifically on MLK Day. Here's another one from Breast Cancer Awareness, and we see this picture of this young person holding a sign that says, inspired by mom. This, again, you can pause for a moment and see if you can think about which of those ethos, pathos, logos, or Kairos are playing into this particular tweet. So hopefully as you look at it, you realize this is almost entirely pathos. So it's designed for us to feel that little tug at our heartstrings that here is this young person who's inspired by their mother, and it's tied to breast cancer awareness. Very likely that this is also a little bit of Kairos depending on when it was posted. If it was close to some sort of breast cancer awareness situation. Okay, so we're going to go through 3 more real quick here. So, and then that'll be it for the video for today, and I'll make a follow-up video. So here's a tweet, and this is, we're just gonna try and look at it objectively and not think about what the what side we fall on as far as this goes. So a tweet from Ingrid Newkirk that says, horrific, Blake Fisher, Idaho's fish and game commissioner, smiling after murdering a family. This psycho needs to be relieved of government duties. Call this number. Okay, so we have a couple things going on. We have Ethos, because Ingrid Newkirk is the president of PETA. We have Pathos because of the picture of the animals, right? These dead animals. And then Newkirk has also used another rhetorical strategy that falls into oftentimes pathos or ethos or even logos, which is word choice. She's used the words horrific, murdering a family, and psycho in order to tug at our heartstrings. So one mistake that students often make is that you say it's an appeal to pathos. The better way to think of it is the author uses an image and word choice and her credibility in order to convince an audience. And again, there's a clear purpose here behind this tweet. She wants to remove this individual from office. Here's the second one, and again, we'll try and look at it objectively, depending, regardless of what your perspective on this is. So this is from the NRA, again, the National Rifle Association, and it has a picture of the Constitution, and it says, got my carry permit right here. So ethos, again, the NRA. The pathos is this picture of the Constitution, which is designed to stir feelings of patriotism or passion among the audience. And this does have an intended audience as well, which we didn't talk about with the previous tweet, but the audience here is definitely people who support Second Amendment rights. We also have word choice that never expires, and then again the purpose, which is to garner support for Second Amendment rights. Here's the third and final one, and it's from Move On. Again, let's think about this objectively. And the tweet says, it's cold, hard fact. It's a payoff and it's rigged. It's time to end GOP control of the House. And then the picture here, kind of like a little meme that says, corporations now spend more lobbying Congress than taxpayers spend funding Congress. So the ethos is that it's from Move On, which is an advocacy group. It's got pathos because we have a picture of the state capitol with somebody in a suit here counting money. We've got logos, theoretically, and I don't know, I haven't checked this or fact checked this, but they say it is a fact of how much corporations spend lobbying Congress versus how much taxpayers spend funding it. And then again, things like word choice, it's a cold hard fact, time to end, etc. And again, the purpose here is to garner support from Democratic voters, again, because it's against the GOP or the Republican Party. So again, we can see that there's a specific purpose at play here, and they're using these specific strategies, right? So one thing that I want you to be aware of as you're looking at these things is not only which strategies are being used on you in these tweets or commercials or ads or whatnot, but which ones you could employ to convince somebody. And it depends on the situation and it depends on the audience what strategies are going to work and how to employ them. I'm going to do several follow-up videos to this because rhetorical analysis is definitely challenging. It's definitely something that if any of you, very few of you have done before, so I want to make sure that you're nice and grounded in this. All right, I will talk to you soon. Have a good one. Email me if you have any questions.